Liz, Archbishop Viganò, my favorite. Talk. He's like a quasi-Trump wingman. He's dropping bombs all the time. Talk about what this letter he sent. I guess to the American people, was it? It was a letter to the American people. Is that what it was about the globalist?
It was a letter to the American Catholics. It's his second one. And Archbishop Viganò, as those of you may remember, he was the papal diplomat to the United States. He has dropped a bomb. In fact, it's the mother of all bombs on the global elites. And what he's doing is he's saying in this letter that Trump's victory marks the beginning of a counter-revolution of common sense. Sound familiar, Steve? A counter-revolution of common sense against the deep state and against the deep church. And, people should remember that up to close to 60% of American Catholics voted for Trump. And what's interesting is Viganò must be watching every move Trump makes from his secret bunker in Europe, because he sees that Trump is restoring, as he says, promises made, promises kept. He's restoring principles of natural law that are the basis of civil life in a well-ordered society. In fact, I think Viganò's actually watching the nomination hearings because he mentions Bobby Kennedy and applauds Bobby Kennedy's support of pulling out of the WHO. He's also very supportive of Trump following up on that infamous Richmond memo targeting traditional Catholics that Kash Patel said in his hearing that he was going to investigate. But there's something more that's going on in this letter, and I really believe that this is a declaration of independence for those of us in the world who are against the New World Order. And interestingly, he says, for the first time after years of woke madness, a president of the United States can carry out the program for which he was elected, restoring principles of civil life and a well-ordered society. And he's talking about declaring independence for all men and women around the world from the tyranny of the New World Order globalists, both in America, around the world. And what I think, Steve, very strongly, this letter that Viganò wrote to American Catholics should be, frankly, read out loud in every legislature, every parliament, in the streets of Dublin and London and Prague, around the world. Because
hang on. Don't bury the lead. Why don't we read it from every pulpit in every Catholic church in the country? Let's start there. I mean, first off, 80% of them wouldn't allow you. These radical cardinals. Go to McElroy in D.C. See if Big Mac will read it this Sunday from the pulpit. The deep church. So seriously, Liz, we'll have you back on because I love Viganò and we haven't had you on enough. But look, let me be brutally frank. There's not 10% of the parishes in this nation, Catholic churches, that Catholics and traditional Catholics give their money to, that would allow that to be read from the pulpit. They not for the gospel. At the end of the Mass, when they read these things, sometimes these encyclicals, you read it, they wouldn't do it, would they? That's the deep church, is it not, ma'am?
Yes, and the deep church, talking about audit, has received in the last 4 years $2.9 billion, that's with a B, dollars from the Biden administration to facilitate human trafficking, fentanyl on the border, bringing these illegal aliens over. So that's a great place to start. And by the way, Steve, the bishops have lost the narrative. American Catholics want the border secure. They are enraged over Catholic Charities and what has happened in the last 4 years because, frankly, the deep states has been silenced by $2.9 billion. They will refuse to protect our citizens. And so that's a great place for Elon Musk to start. And American Catholics are behind Donald Trump in cutting this absolutely facilitation of human trafficking. It's got to end, and it's got to end immediately.
Yeah. The fact they were given orders, Catholic Charities, hey, talk about chutzpah. They're given directions on how to avoid all this. We'll get to that later. Liz, where do people go to your social media, ma'am? You're on your website. You are a fighter, unparalleled fighter, ma'am.
Thanks, Steve. The Viganò letters up at my website, yourechildren.com. I'm everywhere else on social media under Elizabeth Yore, Yore. Thanks, Steve.
Love you, ma'am. Thank you for coming on.